Okay, so hi everyone. We'll start shortly, okay? The candidates are joining, so we'll wait for a few minutes, okay? Okay, so let's start. Hello everyone. For those who are joining for the first time, let me briefly introduce our company, okay? So basically, we are cloud and DevOps company. So inside cloud, we work on all the different clouds like Azure, AWS, and GCP. And regarding DevOps tools also, we have covered the majority of the DevOps tools like CI/CD. We have Jenkins, Azure DevOps, and regarding the security side, we have worked on the SonarQube and other security tools. So if I talk about myself, I'm Ram, and I'm working as a DevOps engineer in hjinfotech. Now, if I talk about this initiative, so our idea behind this initiative is to help the college students and people who are working in the industries and who want to learn the topics. But the thing is, when we watch tutorials, they are more streamlined focus and they are more towards theory and theory. But when we implement these things in the real life scenarios, they are completely different because we are implementing some best practices also, and there are different criteria that we need to mention. So what we are doing is we are sharing our expertise with you all, okay? Like how to follow the best practices and how to do the things right way, right? And this is how we got the idea to start this webinar series. And this is how we are going to contribute to our community, okay? If I talk about the today's webinar, so it will be on Git and GitHub, and Shivesh here will be taking this webinar. Okay. And as already mentioned in the chat, if anyone has any doubt or like if you want to ask any questions, so you can simply raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or you can just paste your question inside the chat. Okay. And you can do this throughout the session. Okay. So yeah, without wasting time, I will just hand over to Shivesh and yeah, let's start the webinar.
Thank you, Ramsar, for introducing everyone. And let me share my screen. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shivesh Vijay, and I'm working as Junior DevOps Engineer at Infotech. And in this seminar, we are learning about Git and GitHub and doing their practical implementation. And let's get started. In this session, what we are covering is first, I'm going to tell about version control system and advantage of VCS. Then we learn about Git as a version control system and its usage in the software industry, how it used in DevOps. And then we learn about some Git commands to manage our project history. And we'll integrate the Git with the GitHub to host our code on the cloud. Then we have a quick quiz on the whole session, and then we'll summarize with the summary of it. Okay. So firstly, the version control system. So what is a version control system is it maintains developers to maintain their state of code. It helps us maintain different version of codes. And let's say in case of any disaster, something went wrong, then developers can check various version of their code. Let's say one stable version, then they can work on that. And it informs us about 4 questions: who, what, when, and why the changes have been made in the project. I will reference it later in the seminar, this 4 question and how it gets answered with the Git. How Git answer these 4 questions in the as a version control system. And then it enhances the project development by providing efficient collaboration. Now, version control system helps in collaboration, which multiple developers can collaborate on a single project in a non-linear fashion, right? And here are some example of some VCS in the market, which is Git. One is Mercurial, and one is SVN, which is a centralized version control system. And then is Helix Code, which is made by Perforce company. And then what is Git and why we use Git in the software development? So
So,
Git
so,
is
uh, Sh-
the
Suresh, I have one quick question, right?
yes, sir.
Can you just tell everybody why people should choose Git, right, and not even using any version controlling tool? So, can you just tell us the importance of behind using Git? Maybe you can tell us a history or something like that.
So why Git is heavily used in the software development is first, it is free and open source. So there won't be any charges for it. And second is it is distributed in nature. What distributed means is, let's see this image for once. We have one this server repository or what we call as remote repo. And then we have some workstation 1, workstation 2, workstation 3. And each workstation defines a single developer. So a single developer would have its own copy of the remote repo. So every developer can work on their functionality individually. So let's say they have a working copy, they can commit the changes in their own local repository, the copy they have of the remote repo, and they can later on push that code changes to the repository. So this distributed nature is what makes Git popularized and makes a first choice for the developers to use in the software development.
What will happen if I don't even use a Git or any other tool in the market?
Yes, there are any other VCS that I previously mentioned, like Mercurial is there.
No. What if I don't even use any version control tool? That's my question. I don't even want to use any like version control tool. So will my life become miserable, or will there be any advantage of it?
There won't be any advantage and your life will become miserable because you need many versions of a particular project. So you cannot make a whole project in a big chunk. You will be creating it in small chunks in particular times, and you need to track who made the changes, the 4 questions we have, who made the changes, what are the changes, and when the changes are made. And let's say I want to see the changes. So how can I do that? Like who's gonna help me? Yeah.
Got it? Clear for me.
As I mentioned, it is distributed in the nature and it is free and open source to use, and it enables developer to achieve the non-linear development, which is done by distributed version control system. Okay, so next we'll see the usage of Git in software industry. So the first major part of a VCS would be to allow collaboration within a software development lifecycle. Now, how Git helps is it allows developers to create branches. So the concept of branching allows developer to write their code in the different history of the project. Every branch defines different history of the project itself. And it allows developers to work on simultaneously project and the feature like pull requests, code reviews, and discussion. These are part of GitHub side. So we'll be learning about GitHub later in this session. And the Git is seamlessly integrates with the CI/CD tools. So we need a VCS in our CI/CD tools or CI/CD pipeline to get the code or to fetch the code from a place and we'll run the pipeline on it. Let's say you want to build the code, you want to test the code, you need the code. To need the code, we will use VCS for that. And in this case, the VCS would be Git. So now we'll be looking over the project implementation. Now, if anybody has doubts till now, they can ask.
Shivesh,
Okay.
I think there is one in the chat. Okay, you can just repeat that.
Yeah, so Bhavesh, what I told earlier is what VCS is, it stands for version control system. So it is a system to get control of different version of our source code. We use VCS to control the different version of a particular source code. This is what VCS is.
Seems like now we can start with maybe like the implementation part. The next slide.
Okay, yeah. So for the project implementation, let's see next slide. So the Git lifecycle architecture. In the architecture, you see there is one initialization or repo. So there are some multiple commands that we are gonna like implement in the terminal. But okay, so the first would be the Git init. We have some files of a user. With the Git init, we made a workspace for it. So what is a workspace is it allows Git to track files in our folder, let's say. So you have a file in your workspace, then you can track it with Git. Otherwise, Git won't track any files outside of that. Then we have Git add, which is used to move files from your workspace to a staging area. It's a second name for index, so they both are allies to each other. Staging area is a place where you can place your files to save those changes, or more I say, to commit those changes. And how can you do that? With the git commit command, right? So with the git commit command, you take those changes from stage area, you can put them in your local repo. So here you can see local repo is achieved by this git commit. Now let's say after making some commit in the, so this local repository would be in your local machine. So you have done your commit and let's say you made any further changes, some new changes in files. Then what happens is you need to re-add those files in which you have made changes to save them again with the git commit command. This is what this arrow shows. And after making changes in the local repo, you need to push them somewhere else. And the somewhere else place is a remote repo. And this remote repo would be hosted on some platform. There are many Git hosting platform. The one we are using today is there's GitHub. So with the git push command, you push your changes to remote repo to save them on cloud. Now, why you want to push your code on the cloud is you can access it from anywhere and you can access it anytime. And because now let's say you use your code on the local machine, it may not be available everywhere, right? So that's a benefit of it using it. Then there is git pull arrow. What git pull arrow does is it takes changes or code files from the remote repo to your workspace. Meaning, let's say you have some code files here in the remote repo. You want those files in your local machine. So what you're gonna do is you will run a command of git pull to get those changes back to your workspace. So this is the whole lifecycle architecture of Git. If anybody has doubt in this, they can ask, or I'll move forward with a diagram of Git.
I think we are good, Shivesh. Okay, you can move forward.
So here's the like simplified version of the whole architecture, and we're gonna performing this diagram in our terminal for a repo. Here it is. There's some user code. We're gonna initialize a workspace. Then we're gonna add some files in the index. Then we're gonna commit it to the local repo. And there's this one another command of git remote add origin. Then we git push our code to the GitHub directly. Let's see some git commands.
So before we move to the Git commands, right? If
Mm.
someone unable to understand, let's say, what this staging means, let's say how this gonna process looks like, right? So just let me just give you an example, right? What can be like consider there's a, let's say you are an Amazon seller, right? And let's say you are building, let's say you are selling mobiles on the Amazon, right? So the thing is now till the mobiles are in your workshop, right? Like at your local place where actually you are building them, right? Or let's say it can be any product, doesn't matter whatever it is. But the main goal is that you're selling it on Amazon.
Mm.
By the meantime, it's on your at your home, right? You haven't told Amazon that this is the product which I want to list on the Amazon right now.
Mm.
It means now is the part of firstly doing an initialize part, letting Amazon know that yes, I'm planning to list a product on Amazon, right? That's number one.
Mm.
Number two is now creating a directory. It means making the product ready, making a label on it, and now is the time to ship the product. Means we
Correct.
have moved that product by making it to the staging area. Means we get the commit and we get the add. Add is more like picking one product out of my files, and now label is more sort of a commit message. Now is the final time to ship the product. It means you're pushing to a remote place. That's your remote repository. So
Mm.
again, try to relate it to real-time problems and real-world examples, and that will give more clarity towards how actually it works, right?
Correct.
And the reason why we are putting it to the remote repositories so that other people can take it from there. It can be your teammates, it can be any other public user, depends on what kind of remote repository you create. Is it public or private? So just want to add to what you just shared, Shivesh.
Shivesh, can
Yeah.
you just go back to the diagram?
Yes, sir. Here.
Okay. Can you please also explain with some example this local environment and remote environment?
I was explaining them in the Git commands, where I'll be using commands to manage history on the local system, and then I will integrate Git with GitHub, which is a remote environment.
Okay, but you can just give at least a high level of overview, like where this local environment is present and what is this remote environment, and why you are using this remote at origin.
What's it? Can you come again?
But you can just give a brief overview, like what is the difference between this local environment and remote environment, right? And also, like you mentioned, that get remote at origin. So what this particular command is doing at least, like everybody can just get an overview of it. Okay.
So what this local environment is, it's basically our local machine. So on the local machine, Git would be responsible for managing the history of our project. And what this remote environment is, the GitHub site, where we are hosting our code with the help of Git, right? And what this git remote add origin command doing is, we're telling it to add a remote environment to our current working repo so that we can push or pull changes from that remote environment. So we'll start with git command. Let me switch to the VS Code first. Is it visible?
Yes, we can see that.
So here I have two files. It's just a small static site, and it has one index.html and second is style.css. So first I need to do is I need to configure my Git. How can I do that is you have to tell Git these two commands, these config commands, where I need to tell it set my email to this, and set my name, my username to this. So uh, let's config the Git first. So in the terminal, uh, not the VS Code terminal, you can open any CMD window and you can type git config global user dot email, and you can type your email as, I'm typing a dummy email here. You can type your own Gmail. So now how can I see if my email is set or not? Just remove your email and enter. So now here you can see it returning my this email which I set here. So it is successfully set. Now I want to set name for it. So I will,
At my side, when I tried this command, it says no command recognized as Git. So can you just tell me what does it mean?
oh, so what it signifies is the Git is not installed in your system. So
Can you
for
tell me how
that,
to install it?
yes, sir. So for that, just head over to Google and type Git download. So you'll end up at this web page for the downloads, and you can install it for any of your OS system, if it's Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. And you can install it with the default settings. It tells you can just click and install it. So let's set the username. It would be Shivesh here. Now how can I check my name? Let's remove my name. Now it's returning the name I set for it. So it's returning Shivesh. So let's check next command for it. We are done with our config. The next command would be this git init. So in the diagram I told you about is we need some workspace that tells Git to track file init, right? So we're going to use git init for that. This is used to initialize an empty repository. So let's run it over this repo. I said git init. So what it returns is initialized empty git repository in this folder. So as you can see, this creates this .git folder in your system. You cannot see on the Windows as it is hidden. It starts with dot, and you can see it in the VS Code. So this folder is very important. If you delete this folder, your whole project history would be gone, and you're not able to retrieve it. So it's important to keep it. So, and let's see another command. The one is git status. So what it does is, let's say you run any
Shvesh,
command.
there is
Yes,
a
sir.
query inside the chat. Okay, can you just explain that?
Is it necessary to use global? No, it's not necessary, but I set for this tutorial as a global. So where I'll be using git. So it take those email and name by default, right? That's why I said use the global flag. Okay. Okay, so let's see the next command we have is git status. So what git status does is, let's say you want to know whatever happens in your git repo, the git initialized repo. So to do that, you're going to use the git status command. So let's just try git status for once. We haven't made any changes right now. Let's say git status. Now what it returns is on branch main. So what I've told you earlier is each branch signifies a different history of. So we in a individual history of this repo or this project, and it says no commits yet, means I haven't made any changes or I did not any use git add command or git commit command to save history of a project. It shows no commits for that, and it says untracked files. So we have two files here. Why these are untracked is it shows these U here. U stands for untracked, means we haven't tell Git to track them. Now, how can we tell Git so that it will track them for us? We have to see the next command. Next command we have is git add, and after that we have git commit. So what git add does is whatever file we mention with the git add command, it's gonna take that file and keep that file in the staging area, or what we say is index. And what git commit does is it takes whatever in the staging area and save those changes in the local repo we have in our system, right? So let's do that. So we have two files untracked here, right? So I add them. Let's add index.html first. The index.html is got added in the staging area. Now, if I run git status here, you will see this changes to be committed. What it signifies is changes to be committed shows those files which are in the indexing area, or I say staging area. So if I run git commit, it will only take this index.html file. It won't take this style.css file because it is still in the untracked phase. So let me add this too. Now again, I will run git status. It shows you this warning. In my case, it's showing this warning, LF will be replaced by CRLF. You can ignore this one. It's related to the file ending. Git status. Now you can see both files are ready to be committed. Now, what I need to do is I want the changes or whatever contents in these files to be saved as a commit. Now, how will I do it is I use git commit, and I will suggest you to use this -m flag, which is for using the commit message to leave a commit message, because if you didn't use this -m, you have to use what we call as Vim editor, and this will be quite tough for beginners. So I will say first commit message, and if I hit enter, it tells me that on the branch main, it shows me this. So what this signifies is it is commit hash. It is a SHA-256 hash, which uniquely identifies our commit within a project history. And this is our commit message. And it tells that 2 files are being changed and there are 97 insertions. What these 97 insertions are, the contents of the file, the numbers of lines which are being inserted. And these are the 2 files and their create modes, right? So is there any next command for that? So the git log one. Okay.
So you are you mentioned a couple of times, right? Like there's a local repository which Git manages. Can you just show us how the local repository looks like?
Like it's a logical term. You cannot actually visually saw it. It's a logical term.
Okay, let's just switch to your repository, Shivish. Let's go to your file explorer where this folder exists.
Okay, let me open it.
Or in the right hand side, I can directly see in a VS Code, there's a .git folder.
Yes, sir.
What this folder is?
It would be in the same folder.
Okay, let's just open this folder on your file explorer. Just bring your file explorer on the screen right now.
Can you see them?
Yep. Just try to zoom a bit so that everybody can see it. Just maximize the screen first. Just click on that. Yep. Okay, just click on the dot. Yeah, just click on the dot git.
Yes, sir.
What's over here? Like what actually happening over here?
So these are for the Git to manage our project history. One is for the index, which is responsible for the staging area. One is a head.
So can we say that this is our local repository where actually these activities are happening right now?
Oh, in that case,
Yes.
yes. This is our local rep in which we are working on.
Okay. Okay. That's what my question like. Because see, when we say local repository, it means somewhere it's getting actually managed, right?
Yes, sir.
So okay. Clear. Okay.
So it will be managed on the same machine that you are working with Git, the local machine.
Clear. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so where I was on the Git log. So what Git logs does is, let's see what Git log does is, if I run Git log here, what it show me is how many commits I have made in this entire repo. So I made one commit. Now it show me some metadata. First is this commit hash that I've been told. This is the full length commit, and here you can see when you git commit, it will show only first seven characters of the commit hash. Then it tells us the author. Author details is what you have been enter in the this config commands. Whatever you config with these commands will be going to show up in this author section. And this is the date that on this date, on this time, on this year, I made this commit. So it is uniquely identified. And here I have this commit message. So what I previously mentioned is in a version control system, we have 4 things. Who made the changes, when the changes are being made, and what are the changes, and why the changes have been made. So those 4 questions in the Git answer is with this Git log. So the first question is who made the changes? This author made the changes, and whose Gmail ID would be this, which is configured by the user itself. And the second question would be when the changes are being made. This answer by this date detail, that on Saturday, on October 26th, on this time, on this GMT time, the changes are being made, the commit is being made. And the third question is why? Why this commit occur? Why the changes happen? So that is that has been identified by this commit message. I just take this first commit message as commit message, but in, let's say you're working in SDLC, software development life cycle, or you're working on real-time project, then you have to use a concise but expressive commit messages. Let's say I made a functionality, so I'll be saying that I completed this feature or this functionality. So how it helps is it tells me what the changes are being made, like why this commit occurs in the project history. That's why this commit message would be elaborative in nature. And the fourth question, which is what are the changes? What are the changes have been made in this commit? So for that we have a different command, which is git diff. Now if I run this command, nothing would happen. It will show me no changes because this is our initial commit. So there haven't any changes. We just add these files in our repo, this local repo, for Git to be tracked. Now to see the changes, you have to make some changes. So I should make one change here. Let's make here. Let's do this right. Okay, if I save it, now here you can see this bar or this M, you can see it stands for modified. So now your file is in modified state. Now if you run git status here, let's run git status, it tells me that one file is being modified, which is style.css, and it says changes not staged for commit. So I cannot commit directly. I need to stage this file in the staging area. And how can I do that? Is I use git add style.css or shorthand. If there are many files that you will individually write git add command, instead you can just say dot. What dot signifies is take all the files and add them to the staging area. So now let's say what is the status of our local repo? It says modified, means now my file or my file changes are ready to be committed. Now let's commit it. Now let's add second commit message. Okay. Now this is my second commit in the project history, and I can see my log here. It show me latest commit first, so I can see my second commit first. Then I can see first commit here. So to use the git diff, what you have to do is you need commit hashes. So I will first say this second commit message. So I'll say 7, 0, 8, 4. You don't need to write the whole commit hash, just the 7 characters. 2, 6, 7, I guess C. Then on which commit I need to see the changes. So the first commit message would be this 999A F D. Yes, this is 7. Now when I hit enter, it show me this output of git. So how to read this output is, let's read it from here. What this minus signifies is, so this minus and plus doesn't signify insertion or deletions. It just that Git allows, not allows, allocates minus to this file, the a/style.css, and it allocates plus for b/style.css. So in the red, in the minus, you can see the changes from this one, a/style.css, and this is from our first parameter, and this parameter is from our first, not first, but the second commit. So in the second commit, we save the changes as background to be red. Now in the plus background lavender, the plus came from this b/style.css, which is from this commit, our first commit. So the background was lavender and we changed it into red, right? So that is the answer to our fourth question, which is what are the changes have been made. So what I've been done now is I initialized the repo. I made some changes. I did the git add command. I did git commit command. I did the git log command, and I did the git diff command to know or to manage the history of my Git repo project, right? So let's see more commands. So we have another two commands, git clone and git push. Now these two commands are, so the git clone is a command to get a already hosted repository to your local repo or to a local machine. So let's say if anybody made any repo on the GitHub, then you can take that exactly repo or look files to a local system, and we will do that in the GitHub part, and this git push we will be later doing in the GitHub part because we need to integrate GitHub with the Git. So these are the Git commands to be used to manage the uh, project history. So if anybody has doubt in till now, they can ask in the chat box, or else I'll move forward in the integration of GitHub. So, so this integration with GitHub. So before that, let me just tell you about what is GitHub is. GitHub is a Git hosting service by Microsoft. Now what Git hosting service means is you can host your code which is tracked by Git tool. Means here I use Git to track the code in my folder, so I can host those changes to my Git repository. So why we do this is so that our code is accessible from anywhere at any time in the whole world. So this is advantage of using GitHub repo. And now we're gonna following these steps to integrate Git with GitHub, right? So first we need is initialize a Git repo, which we already did, and we have to add files to it and commit changes, which we already did with the git add and git commit command. Then what we need is head over to your GitHub account. So let's head over to our GitHub account. Then we have to create a repository, right? So let's see our, so I have this repository already been made. I will give a name of Git seminar and we'll be using it to host our code on the GitHub. So what's the next step? Get HTTPS link for your remote repo. So we need this here. So whenever you make a repository on the GitHub, you'll be introduced with this interface. There you can choose HTTPS. Now it will give you a link. We're gonna copy it, or as there are also these commands that you can just use. These are the same commands that we are following. Then let's head over to our VS Code. Right. So now after copying it, now what we have to do is we have to tell Git about the remote repo, our remote repo. So how we're going to tell it? So in the VS Code, in the terminal, we have to write git remote add origin. Now we are adding a remote whose name is origin. You can name it anything, but preferably we use origin here. And paste your repository link, this link that we have copied from GitHub repository. Now enter it. So now you configure Git to integrate with the GitHub. Now you can push your code to the GitHub directly from Git. Now how can you do that? Is by running git push command. Now what git push command does is it takes your code and push it to this origin. So what this origin is, this HTTPS link. So let's push the code, git push origin name. This is exactly the syntax that I'm telling it is just push the code to this origin or this remote and having this branch. So I'm pushing this whole code to the main branch. So let's enter. Okay. So we have successfully pushed our code to the GitHub and let's see our code there. Let me refresh it. Okay, so here you can see your files are visible now here. Now, if I go to commits here, I can see my commits. What commit signifies is a whole project history. So there will be my first commit message, then there's a second commit message, and you can open it. Then you will see this. What this green and this -0 represent is git diff command. So whatever the output of git diff command is shown on the GitHub in this form.
Why it says like push was made 9 minutes ago, 16 minutes ago? Because push I just did, right? But why it says like that much time ago?
Yeah, I will show that in this terminal. So where's my commit? So these are my two commits, right? So git this commit is being made on this time, and this commit is being made on this time. So it doesn't depends on what the git push is being made. It depends on which time this commit is being made. According to that, it calculates that it is 18 minutes ago or 8 minutes ago. It will show that time.
Okay. All right. It means like whenever developer created their changes and if they already completed their work 2 days back, they don't need to they don't need to represent that, right?
What's that?
Like let's say if a developer is there, right? And there's a task which he already completed 2 days back. Now, if you will commit the changes 2 days back only, manager will know, right? That he already completed the work 2 days back only.
Yes, sir.
All right. So just like it's important, right? Whenever you make your commit changes, because it tracks it logs your history, right? So make sure whenever you are doing commit, so you know at what time you need to do. It's just a quick tip that reminds and like you have along with you.
Because it's important for a VCS to track those 4 questions. It has to answer those 4 questions at any given moment. So it will track that time. So we're done with the integration part of the GitHub. So if anybody has doubt in that, they may ask.
Can you just tell us what's the alternative of GitHub if I don't want to use? Because for Git you already told us, right? But what's any other option for GitHub also?
Like for Git hosting services, there are many like Azure repos, GitLab, so Bitbucket. These are alternative of GitHub. You can use those as well. Anybody has doubt or else move forward. So what we have next is quiz time. So in this section, we're gonna have some questions, and each question would have 4 options, right? And one option would be correct. So I will be showing question to you, and I'll be showing options to you, and you all have to like drop the option in the chat box. So the first question is, which command is used to create a Git workspace? The thing we did the first test. So the option are, first the option is git create command, second is git add, third is git init, and the fourth is git start.
All right, guys, you can use chat to drop your answer over there. You can just put A, B, C, or D, whatever you think is the right answer. All right, we got the first one over there. Okay.
Option A. Okay.
Okay. Now let's have everybody, like whoever wants to give their answers. And again, feel free to drop, like guys, like don't hesitate yourself. What maximum can happen is your answer will be wrong. Nothing else can happen, right? So yeah, that's it. We'll wait for one more, for at least a minute, and we'll reveal the answer. All right, let's move on. Let's reveal the answer.
Okay, let's see the answer of this. Answer is git init. So the git init is used to initialize the empty git repository in your local repo on your local system. We tell git to track changes of our files with the help of this git init command, right? So let's move on to second question.
Before you move on to the second question, Shivesh, can you please also explain, like, someone has answered A, so why A is the wrong answer?
Why A is the wrong answer is git create, there's nothing such as git create in the git commands. That's why it is wrong answer. And second question is, which command is used to check the history of your code? And the options are, first is git history, second is git show, third is git lookup, and fourth is git log. Which one is correct? Okay, Bhavesh said D. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Venkata said D. Gopi also said D. Should I reveal the answer?
Yep.
Okay. The correct answer is git log, and with the git log, we can see the commit message of uh, our history. And what git log does is it lists all the commits in our history of your code, right? So we use git log for that. And why git lookup is wrong is because we do not have such command as git lookup in the git commands. So that's why that is wrong option. So next question is, which of the following is a wrong statement? First is Git is distributed version control system. Second is you can track code without initializing it. Third is GitHub stores your code on cloud. And the fourth one is Git's history impacts the repository size. Which one is a wrong statement? Not true, but a wrong one.
This one's a little bit tricky.
Gopi said B. B, everybody saying B. Hope you will read all the options. The correct answer of the wrong statement is second option. You can track code without initializing it, which is a wrong statement. And why it is a wrong statement is you need to initialize a empty Git workspace so that Git knows it needs to track files in it. So that's why this is wrong. And the first option, which is Git is a version control system, which is true. Third is GitHub stores your code on cloud, which is true. And the fourth is Git history impacts the repository size, which is also true. And why it is true that if you constantly add commits in your history, if you kept uh, committing changes in your project, that will gonna consume some space. And one of the example of this would be Linux kernel GitHub repo, because I guess it's 5 or 7 GB is just commit history. That's why the Git history impacts the repository size. That's why toward the fourth question, what is the command to configure Git? And the options are, first is git commit, not git commit, first is git config, second is git set dash dash user, third is git add, fourth is git root. And the answer is option A, git config. Git config is used to config your email and name to the Git to know in the author details what it has to use. And the other three command is wrong because there's no such command as git set, git add, git roll. I just made them up, so they are wrong. The fifth and final question of this quiz, which is which commands is used to upload your code and get latest code in your system from GitHub. Mention the order of the statements and let's see the options first. First is git push and git fetch. Second is git push and git pull. Third is git upload and git refresh. And fourth is git sync and git pull. So there are two commands in this question. Let's see the answer for this. And the answer is B, which is correct. So what the question says is the first command would be to upload your code, which is to upload your code, we use git push. And the second is to get latest code in your system from GitHub, which is git pull. So we use these two commands. So the option B is correct and the other three are wrong. So this is the end of the quiz and in the session summary. So what we did today is we learn about what are version control system and what are advantages of them. We saw Git as version control system and why we use it and why we use Git in the software development life cycles. We did the hands-on implementation of Git commands to manage the history of our source code or project or our local repo. And further on, we integrate GitHub with Git to host our code on the cloud so that it can be accessible from anywhere. And with that, we see the whole life cycle of Git and GitHub. So the flow of Git to the GitHub, our code from our local machine to the entire internet. We saw this life cycle. And so this was the whole session. And thank you everyone for your patience, for joining the session. And now I will hand over to Sir to end the
Okay.
session.
So yeah, thank you everyone for joining the session. I hope like you really enjoyed and really learned something out of it. Okay. Now, before you conclude, there is a form that has been shared inside the chat. Okay, so you can just provide us a feedback. Okay. Another thing is you can also follow us on the different social media platforms like YouTube and Instagram, where we are consistently posting the study materials and updates regarding the next webinars. Okay. Okay, and I think yeah, catch you guys in the next session. Okay. Yeah. Thank you all.